So hello everyone, welcome to our alternative view or simply alt view. As you know, right, at alt view, we chat with industry leaders to get to know them and also their opinions and insights, and we hear about their views. May they be popular, unpopular, or brand new, alternative, or anything in between. So I'm your host, Yaoqi from All Layer, an elastic and versatile execution layer on Ethereum for Web3. Today, it's our great honor to have Xinyuan working with the Flashbot these days, and he's also mainly focusing on the research on MEV and also Three EVs. So it's a sort of great pleasure to have him. And Xinyuan, can you tell us about yourself and what are you working on at the moment?
Yeah, sure. I mainly do research at Flashbots or performance art, as most people say that my talks are kind of more like performance art rather than research. Yeah, overall, so my agenda would be to unlock the magic of credible commitment. That is how I would frame it. Not MEV, but unlock the magic of credible commitment. So if you think about why crypto has value, right? Like it's because we want to use crypto as a device such that we can encode general statements about any kind of credible commitment, and those credible commitments restrain in whatever game, restrain those agents' action space, and thus it's easier to reason about the game, right? And then, if you restrain the agent from doing some, undesirable actions, then it's possible that you increase the social welfare, or aka like increasing the economic efficiency. Okay, yeah, so this is like all what we are all doing here, right? Like crypto as a whole, but then why does this tie to MEV? Specifically is at the unlocking the magic part. It has some magic most people are working on, having how do we extract this magic, but then like the real blocker in my mind is MEV. So because of MEV, the magic of credible commitment cannot be exerted. Why? It is because the economic efficiency that you can gain from having a credible commitment will be eroded due to the negative externalities caused by the quote unquote past dependency of which approach you take to eliminate those inefficiencies. Yeah. So then, if you choose to use permissionless credible commitment devices, such as crypto to achieve this coordination, then you have the externality of MEV, and this is what we are doing here. Yeah.
I see, I see. Yeah, sounds amazing. At the same time, as you say that it's not research, but from your description, it's quite like sort of academic. And as you know, right, in DevCon, you talk about what's MEV and what's not MEV. I'm still have a lot of like sort of impressions on like how you share about like the description on these definitions. Here, can you also share a little bit more about your research on these topics? And probably just start with like what's MEV and what's not MEV. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, exactly. So at DevCon, my colleague Alejo gave a talk about this is not MEV, and then I gave a talk about this is MEV. So I'm gonna start with this is not MEV part. If you think about any game, so previously I mentioned that we wish to use credible commitment to solve the inefficiencies in economy, right? So in any game, the agent have some payoffs, right? So then, what kind of payoffs are exactly MEV? What kind are not? So if we take the simplest example, a prisoner dilemma, right? So in a prisoner dilemma, you have two prisoners, A and B, right? And if they choose to both cooperate, they get a higher payoff than if they both choose to defect. Or if one of them chooses to defect, another chooses to cooperate, then the one chooses defect will get a higher payoff, right?
That's
so
true.
Then, this is for background. So then, let's take the simplest payoff schedule. Let's say if they both cooperate, then both of them get a payoff of 2. And if both of them defect, then they both get a payoff of 1. Okay, so then in the original game, we know that the dominant strategy equilibria, right? The dominant strategy for each agent to play is to both defect. And then at this time, both of them get a payoff of 1, right? So both of them extracts a value of 1 from the system. And this value is not MEV. because there is, nothing happening. There's no conflict once, right? There is no, right? Because the OG definition of MEV states that if one privileged party or a collision of privileged parties can extract value from a system by manipulation of the system, then that value is called MEV, right? So then like here, there's no like manipulation or privileged party happening. This is purely like what the payoff, the value that you can extract from the original game. Okay, so that 1-1 from Prison Dilemma is not MEV. Then what is MEV? So for example, now we have a credible commitment device, right? So suppose we have crypto, and then you can publish smart contracts, right? This sounds great. Then one of the prisoners published a smart contract saying that if the other agent commits to cooperate, then I will commit to cooperate. If the other agent does not commit to cooperate, then I commit to defect, right? Then once the agent A publishes the smart contract or credible commitment, then the other agent sees this contract, and the dominant strategy for the second player would be to commit, right? And then both agents commit to cooperate, and then we get the best payoff, right? Like both of them cooperate, and then both of them get a payoff of 2. And then if we compare, it's 4 minus 2, right? It's like we have gained 2 units of social surplus, and this value can be called MEV, right? Because this is like you change the game, you wrap the original game with like giving both players the power to do credible commitment, and thus you've created value, and that value is MEV. However, and this is clearly one of the good MEVs, right? As people call it. Yeah. So there are more nuances to this, right? But let's move on.
Yeah, so as you just mentioned, right? So you talk about like sort of the MEV, and at the same time, I know you also basically propose a new definition for MEV to 3 EV. I think that's the beauty part, like the beautiful part. At least I heard from your talk. Can you also share about like the 3 EV part? I believe the new definition of MEV is really more precise. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So, so some background for 3 EV, like, the motivation for me basically, to instead of the original definition, right? The original definition is that any value that the miner can, or like the block builder, they can like, or validator can extract, from insertion or deletion or reordering of transactions within a block. That value is called MEV. So that is the OG definition given by Phil and widely used by a lot of academic work on MEV. And then, there is also the folklore version, right? The folklore version used by most people on crypto Twitter or like widely in the industry is that any way that you can make money on chain is called MEV, or not even on chain, right? Any way you can make money is called MEV. However, this folklore version has been disproven by my previous, prison dilemma thing. Okay, so now we want to give a better example, right? We want to give a definition of MEV that actually works. So, like as a motivation, let's think about why opaque privacy, so things like threshold encryption or fair ordering doesn't work. So the reason why it doesn't work is because it is true that you can eliminate the MEV that originates from agents gaining an exposed knowledge about other people's private information. What do I mean by exposed knowledge? Is like if you have 2 agents, A and B, they are supposed, if they were supposed to play the game in a simultaneous order, but then like currently, one of the agents plays the game as if it is in a sequential order, and thus that agent knows the previous agent's actions, and then add privileged information. Then the surplus value that the second agent can extract is called bad MEV, or like I usually characterize this as mafia EV, because if you look at this, what you're really is like forming a mob and then use this mob to either extort others or to act privilegedly based on your information, right? So then like Yeah, so extortion is also a heavy part of this, right? Because it is a well-known principle in classical economy that if the seller knows the utility of the buyer, then the seller can extract a surplus, or can extract a surplus almost equals to the full utility of the buyer. So on that part, it is clearly mafia EV, right? So if I'm a seller, I know that you have a utility of 1 million for this painting, then like I will charge you 1 million, right? And then I know you will accept. Yeah. So this like, and then suppose I didn't know, then I would probably just, I don't know, charge you something like 500K, and then then the difference, the delta 500K is like mafia EV.
That's true.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so back to the fair ordering example. So fair ordering or like threshold encryption, any kind of private mempool solution basically solves this, because they say, oh, there's no way you can extract information from other people's actions, right? I don't know anything that you do, and thus I can't I can't act on this information, right? I can't extort you. I can't give you an offer that extract almost all of your utility, because I don't really know what your utility is. So this is like how they aim to solve this. But however, there's a major flaw with this. It's because, like as we previously mentioned, the whole reason why crypto has any value is because we want to use crypto as a credible commitment device, right? Mm-hmm. However, like credible commitment cannot work if you don't know like what the commitment is, right? Like the whole value why it has any, the whole reason it has value is because you know that the commitment has been made. So suppose the prisoner dilemma example. Now the first prisoner publishes a smart contract saying, oh, if the other person commits to cooperate, then I will commit to cooperate. Otherwise, I commit to defect, right? This is the commitment. Now, suppose you end up in like, a private scenario, then like the other agent does not know this commitment has been committed, then like then the game doesn't check out. Or like more generally, what you can see is that we know that in DeFi or in general in AMM trading, it is better to so in the simplest example, suppose you have 6 orders. Buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, right? Then it is better for everyone if I order the orders in buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, rather than buy, sell, 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 right? Because in that case, the slippage is the least, right? If I order buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. So that's essentially the like coincidence of wants. We let users trade against each other instead of like trade against the market maker, right? Because the market maker charges more slippage. Okay, so then like we know there's some coordination, there is some welfare that we can recover from knowing what the user's order is, right? If I don't know what your order is, or if I know but I don't have the power to reorder your transactions, then I cannot make buy, sell, sell, sell into buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, right? Like there's some certain amount of welfare that is lost from not being able to coordinate. So this traditionally, like in game theory, has been called price of anarchy, which is, right, it's intuitive, like it's anarchy. There's no single coordinator that can help you to recover this welfare, and thus everybody pays a price. Okay, so then we also, right, like, so then we know that fair ordering or private mempool, or like in general, like traditional private mempool or traditional threshold encryption schemes does not account for this, because it even though it eliminates mafia extractable value, but it bears the burden of price of anarchy. So then like we really need a new term for this price of anarchy thing, right? Because what we really care is like social welfare. We want to everybody have a better price. We want everybody to gain real utility from using crypto or using any kind of bearing applications. So then we want those two terms, but it's ugly if we just add those two terms together, right? We say, oh, what we are optimizing is price of anarchy plus this MEV term. Why not just like call them both MEV? And I argue price of anarchy is MEV. Okay, but let's get back to the 3EV point. So price of anarchy is something I usually call like malloc extractable value. For those. yeah, and yeah, so Moloch is basically like this deity in or god in like I think Hebrew culture, or yeah, like in the myths, that it's basically an evil god that has a head of an ox, and then you can sacrifice your child to the god, and then the god will grant you immediate success in war. So this is like how the mythology goes. And then in modern culture, people usually use Moloch to refer to inefficiencies in the economy that is caused due to discoordination, right? So why is this? Is because like if you imagine like you like discoordination is basically very similar to sacrificing your future returns, aka your child, in return for in return for like immediate gains in war, right?
That's true.
So yeah. Okay, so that's why we call it Moloch extractable value. And you can notice a neat thing. Moloch and Mafia both start with M, so we can, keep the MEV term very well. And then why I insist on making price of anarchy another term for MEV is because, like, if you look at, so for example, NFT launches or liquidations, right? So in those things, it's not like anybody, right? Like so it's intuitive. Those two things are MEV, right? Like atomic arbitrage, liquidation, and NFT launches, right? Like those things are surely MEV, like even by like our intuition or folklore definition. Then, however, there's no agent that gains any kind of exposed private information advantage, right? There's none. Like all of the information is public, and yet our intuition tells us there is still MEV. Then why is that? It's because this is a coordination problem, right? You have a scarce resource that you need to allocate, and a lot of people want it. So then that is like you have some MEV to be extracted from the allocation of those resources, and that allocation itself is a coordination problem.
Yeah,
right?
it's
Like
sort of like
all of the
bots and validator can front run the other users to like sort of do this kind of value extraction, right? From
Yeah,
the
it is possible.
liquidation.
So in that case, it would be the validator exerting mafia extractable value onto the system. However, like it is also possible that the value is created without the validator being the mob, right? So imagine like two agents, like right. So for example, the easy example like Newton and Leibniz, right? Like they both claim they created like calculus first. However, like so you can kind of feel there's quote unquote front running happening here, right? However, there isn't like any expose of private information happening here, right? None of them are like acting privilegedly to anything. It's just like they both come up with the thing. So it's same as in NFT launches, right? Everybody has a need for that thing, and it's not like people are acting privileged on that. So the thing you were talking about, right? Like, so the coordinator or the validator acting privilegedly based on the information. So this thing traditionally, so for example, we've been calling this like this situation as the uncredible auctioneer or uncredible coordinator. So in this case, so for example, we know that in second price auctions, right? Second price auction is basically right, like you bid your true value, and then the highest bidder pays the second highest price.
Yeah.
And then, like in this case, we know that it is possible for the auctioneer, right, the seller, to boost the price that the winning agent pay by inserting fake bids, right? You can like observe all of the bid and place a bid that is like the first bid minus epsilon, and then extract utility. So this is like the mafia EV case, but then like it is also possible that so we also know that second price auction is the most efficient, aka welfare maximizing mechanism that you can use to allocate a good, right? So then now suppose you don't use second price auction, you use like a shitty mechanism that is some weird things like for example random, right? You have people do like paper scissors, rock paper scissors to decide who gets the who wins the auction. So in this case, you're not necessarily allocating the goods to the people with the highest utility, right? There is some social welfare loss, and that social welfare loss is the Yaoqi extractable value, right? Like, yeah. So that's why, I separated them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you really give like sort of a long explanation about this three EV, and we all know that like sort of the like the different definition like whatever this MEV right already happening on Ethereum and also various other L1s like Polygon is and also BNB chain and even some non EVM chains like Solana. Beyond that, we know, right, for the recent like L2 general purpose L2s like Arbitrum and also Optimism, right? We can also monitor like sort of like we don't see MEV at the moment, but right, it's claiming to be first come first serve. But at the same time, right, as previously discussed, there are a bunch of like application specific rollup, sort of built for these dApps. That is a DeFi, social app, and also games. I also would like to know, like, do you think there are some potential like MEV cases in these sort of app rollups? Like us, the sort of earlier, we're also providing some app rollup for application. But do you think in the near future for these app rollups, do you feel like there will be a lot of places for the MEV?
Yeah, so great question. I've been thinking about this for a while, and especially since like, this is a thesis that many people in the community share, right? The app chain thesis, or like most people, the fancier name, sharded rollup thesis.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so right, like people I love fancy names in the rollup community, I would say. But yeah, okay, so if you think about it, then what so previously I talked about like malloc extractable value, right? So that part is about coordination, right? And then we know that there is need for coordination. There is need for a coordinator for elimination of inefficiency if the scenario is more complex, right? If the scenario is simple, or I would call more common value. Common value, I think everybody wants the same thing. Then you don't really need a super expressing mechanism to solve this. Why? So imagine the simplest case, arbitrage or liquidation. Right. Then everybody wants the same thing. What do they want? They want to first capture the opportunity. Then what you really need is a very simple mechanism that, for example, PGA works, right? Priority gas auction, or like block space priority auction, that basically says, okay, like I auction off the first slot in the block. And then this very simple mechanism actually solves most of those MEV, right? Because everybody wants the same thing. It is common value thing. However, if we move from common value to diverse value, then this doesn't really work, right? So this is also the motivation why we ended up in this model of PBS, proposal builder separation. Is because the builders is able to not only run those simple mechanisms, but also to do bundle merging or like block building. In general. So like bundle merging is basically saying you have diverse preferences, and then for example, one person wants an NFT launch, another person wants to capture the liquidation, then those two things can be merged, right? They're not in conflict of both wanting the first slot of the block. So then like we can merge them together. So this is the more simple case. Like they're like so block building is basically for the generic version of the generic transaction version of this. Like you can merge non-conflicting bundles together. Okay, so this is why if you move from common value to diverse value or diverse preferences, then you need more expressive mechanism. Okay, so then now talking about app rollups. The app rollups, as you can see, moving from generic general computation platforms to application-specific rollups, then we know that on a single domain, right, domain meaning chain or the rollup, then the value moves from diverse preference to common value, right? So, right, so for example, previously people launched both an FTA and an FTB on the same platform. Now they move to different rollups, different chains. Then on each chain, we only then on each chain we only need a very like simple mechanism to solve MEV, right? Because there's less overlapping in the preferences, or like each agent knows more about other agents' preference for the same good or the same resource, right? So then like we can so then what this implies is that on a single domain or on a single chain, on a single rollup, then there is still MEV. However, there's less malloc MEV to be eliminated because there's less diverse preference. There's more common value. Okay, so this is the single chain case. What about cross chain? Cross chain is where the malloc MEV will live on, right? So like on cross chain, on like cross application specific thing, then you can imagine like the cross I don't know, cross domain coordination layer is where it captures most of the diverse preference allocation problem. Yeah.